We are live. We've already got people tuning in. So thank you very much, guys, for joining us. Very excited to welcome you into this Active Pipe webinar with the man himself, Josh Phegan. 2021 starts now. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping before we do get started. Down the bottom, we've obviously got the chat box. So do pop in where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear the officers tuning in and what experience you've had, be it with the restrictions and the pandemic, and how you guys are coming out on top as well. We do also have the question and answers box down the bottom. So throughout the webinar, if you do think of anything, please feel free to populate them there. We will go through it at the end for timely purposes as well. But essentially, we've got 4 weeks out from Christmas. You've all worked so hard during the pandemic and the restrictions. You worked too hard to coast into the rest of the year. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through how you can finish off 2021 as strong, because no doubt you guys have adapted and evolved, both yourself and your business as well. So we want to make sure that you guys come out on top into the new year. Now, it's always a pleasure to have this man sitting next to me, be it virtually. So I'm always astounded with how much Josh can cover in 45 minutes. So I'm going to wrap up now and he's going to take you on the journey for this webinar now today.
Amazing. Well, Toby, I love that Active Pipe is an on-time company. We said 10 o'clock sharp Sydney time, and we are on, which is fantastic to have you join us. So, team, we're going to have a great session today. Feel free to type in where you're from inside of the chat box, as Toby had said there, and put in any questions and answers as we actually go throughout the course of today. We're going to go to some Q&A at the end of the session. So, without further ado, let's jump in and have a quick look at what some of the best agents are doing right the way around the country to really make sure that they're building a ton of momentum as we come through this period. Well, for me, I think that this is a great time to be really thinking about the vision around what you want to go and create. 2020 was probably not the year that we all thought it was going to be, but now more than ever before, we're going to get clarity on what 2021 really looks like. You see, the big thing for me is that there was a great quote that really shook me up a few weeks ago. And it was this whole idea that the definition of hell is the last day here on earth where the person that you became gets to meet the person that you could have become. And it gets me to think a lot about the vision around what you want to go to create. And this is a really important part. What did you actually come here to achieve? And I love that whole idea, because when we think about what we came here to achieve, it's about saying that, you know what, no one has ever got to the top of Mount Everest and said, how did I get here? Everyone's actually had a plan. They've had real clarity. They've done a lot of training to go and make that happen. And that's exactly the same on the inside of our real estate careers. And ultimately, when you achieve what it is that you want, are we done? Or is it time to go and set out a new personal Everest on things that you want to go and achieve? Now, why is this such an important part? Because where we're at and where we're going are two very different things. And hopefully the space between your dreams and your reality actually inspires you. So what we need to be starting to think about is that now more than ever before, that we've got to start thinking differently about a deeper purpose. Is there a deeper purpose to your business, a reason why you exist, a problem that you solve better than anyone else in the marketplace? A mindset, a set of philosophies, a fire that can't be put out, a desire to make an impact, to create a legacy, whatever it is, it's your vision. People can join companies that have a greater sense of purpose. And this is a really important part for you as an agent this year, is to start to think about 2021 and what we're going to be doing to make that happen. We need to get very, very clear around a mission. And that mission is about, a set of agreed growth marks that, when met, actually signal either achievement in the next stage of our quest, when it's specific and measurable criteria. This is all about saying that inside of your business, you've probably had 3 very important numbers that you've been looking at: the volume of transactions that you've been doing, your average sale price around the type of properties you've been representing, and also in addition to that, the volume of transactions that you've been completing. So if you think average sale price, volume, and in addition to that, the average fee. Now, for you, if you go and have a quick look into heading into 2021, what is your plan? Are you thinking there's going to be more volume, so more transactions? So if you're currently doing 20 transactions a year, how do you shift that to an extra transaction a month to 30 transactions a year? If you just do that alone, that's a 50% increase in your total income. Is it about increasing your average fee? If your fee's at 2% as an example, how do you actually shift that in a position that you get it to 2.2? The benefit of doing that in going to 2.2 is just a 10% increase in the overall business itself. Then we then go and have a look at the next one. We say, okay, great. Could there be a shift in your average sale price? If your average sale price is at 800,000, how do we then move that into $1 million? That extra 200,000 over the 800 though is a 25% increase in your total business. And this is where we've got to get really intentional about what we're actually seeing happening, because there is a lot of changes certainly ahead. We know there's some huge discounts in relation to stamp duty in what's just been announced yesterday in the Victorian budget. Also, there's some big changes in the New South Wales budget with a movement towards a broad-based land tax as opposed to a fixed stamp duty amount on property transactions that will be coming in over the course of the next year. It's out for consultation at the moment, but that is going to substantially change what actually happens in the number of transactions that we see. And in addition to that, we've got markets that are fueling in every major capital city right the way across Australia, and certainly some very strong markets in New Zealand. What this goes to indicate is that average sale prices are going to be up, but when we go through these boom periods where we start from the bottom of the market cycle into a rising market, the number one thing that a number of our competitors will do is they'll ultimately use fee as their tool to be able to go and list properties. The challenge with that is that that actually doesn't produce a great result for all, because the overall number of transactions that we're seeing has actually been reducing over the course of the last 2 years. And although there's a return to some volume in some markets, there are other marketplaces that are absolutely starved for new stock coming to market. Particularly a number of our holiday destinations from places like Byron Bay to Noosa, the central coast of New South Wales, south coast of New South Wales, and even down into the Mornington Peninsula, where we are actually seeing a real trend towards people wanting to buy holiday homes. Challenge is, if you already live in those locations, you may not want to move, because that's ultimately where people are wanting to move post the pandemic, because they really want to get quality of lifestyle and the ability to be able to work from home. But is working from home a fad, or is it actually a trend? And is it something that's going to be a long-term systemic trend, or is it just in this period of time until an effective vaccine is rolled out across Australia and New Zealand? What I think is really important is that we've got to get really clear about your numbers. And it's really important to have a plan. And I love this great quote by Peter Thiel, where he just says, how can you achieve your 10-year plan in the course of the next 6 months? Now, the reason why that is such an important part is that what we're talking about is that now more than ever before, we've got to get a bigger view to the future. A lot of us have been very, very narrowly focused about the things that we can be doing. And ultimately, our horizon of focus has gone out from over the course of the next 5 to 10 years to really zooming into what can we do this week, and ultimately what can we do this month, given the current restrictions that are in play. But what I would say to you is that now is the time to dream again, to dream big around what you want to go to create. This is your chance to ultimately get a 10-year view on where you want to be going and the things that you want to be doing. And now that the restrictions are starting to be lifted, particularly around travel between Victoria, New South Wales, and Queensland on our eastern state seaboard, it is an amazing thing where you start to see planes returning to the air and people feeling that level of progress as they book a holiday over the course of the Christmas New Year period. Now, today's webinar we titled as 2021 Starts Now, and it really does, particularly if you're an auction agent who are now starting to list all of your auctions for January next year. This is going to be really important that we get our mind around how we're going to be going to create that. We also speak a lot about today about the role of what marketing is going to play in positioning you for growth as an agent into the future. And this is about understanding that people don't see it as a product or a service anymore. They actually see it as what we do as an experience. So if you want to increase your fee, if you want to increase your average sale price, if you want to do more transactions, then you need to provide a much better quality experience for the customer. And in addition to that, that we need to be everywhere that the customer actually is. We know the customer is very deeply entrained in what they're doing inside of their email inbox. We know they're in the digital environments around what we're doing in terms of social. So when we go to produce great video content about what's happening inside of the market, that not only needs to be on email, it needs to be in all of our social accounts at exactly the same time. And the reason for that is that people are ultimately choosing their particular social platforms. Now, this is really important because you've got to make sure that you're producing great quality content that is going to go everywhere where the customer expects to see it. We now know that ultimately they don't really look at the price of a particular product or service. They look at what are they exchanging for the delivery of that product or service to be able to make it a luxury experience. Now, this is a really important conversation because you have a look at the reject shop and then you go and have a look at Louis Vuitton. And Louis Vuitton don't for a moment worry about what's happening at the reject shop. Now, both of them sell ladies' handbags. And from what I'm told, both of those handbags do pretty much the same thing in terms of their ability to be able to color, to be able to carry all of the important items that they would carry inside of a handbag. Interesting conversation about that. Some people see significant value at $20 at the reject shop. Other people see significant value at $6,000 at Louis Vuitton. Now, the reality of it is that all comes back down to the exchange of what it is that we're getting. What is the feeling that we're actually buying? And ultimately, we now know that promotion is all about evangelism. People join products and services. and that word of mouth marketing is the most important form of marketing. So when we're actually working through with a buyer, how easy is it for them to open up the email when they get the email from us, to be able to book an appointment for us, to be able to physically go and inspect a particular property, or even to get you to give them an idea on what their home is worth? How easy is it for the consumer today to ask exactly the right questions at exactly the right time? And our job is about understanding what are the customers actually doing at that digital intent level, so we can work out who to go and call next. Now, I'm not sure as agents whether or not there's a game somewhere which is, collect as many people as you can in your database and not do much with it. But we see a lot of people do that, where they're not really cleansing that data. They're not doing enough of the cleansing survey to identify who are the buyers that are in the market today and who are really the sellers that are in the market. And they're not thinking what they can do next about that. Every single time that someone actually upgrades or changes their criteria around what it is that they're looking for, it's possible to pull up that list inside of ActivePipe and to go and call those particular people. They're effectively putting up their hand and saying, hey, come and see me. I've got some challenges. I've got some changes. I'm looking in different areas and different price points because I'm not finding what it is that I want. And every single time that someone unsubscribes from an email, I actually see that as being a great opportunity to reconnect with that particular person. If they unsubscribe from the email, what they're actually telling you is, hey, you know what? We're not finding what it is that we want. We're actually in a position today that we're no longer actually seeing what we need. And so from that point of view, get on the phone and give us a quick call. You might have found that they've already just purchased something, which may mean that they're an immediate seller for their previous home, or may actually mean that they're currently going to be a landlord potentially for the business, given that they've just bought another investment property. This is all about seeing the opportunities that are directly in front of you. And really, it's about getting into a firm position that you actually go to see what is the commitment around what you're going to go and achieve in 2021. Now, for me, this commitment is a really important part, because when you set out on committing towards something that you've never done before, you have a ton of fear. So where are the areas that ultimately you need great courage? Because if you get the courage on, and that then allows you to then thinking about how you can go and build new capabilities. Those capabilities really then do allow you to go and build a brand new level of confidence. I was working with a great agent yesterday. She's working inside of the team with her partner. And one of the big things that I identified very quickly is that she's not letting go of enough of the admin. And she's claiming that all she wants to do is really all of the buyer work. And what I worked out very quickly is that she hadn't made the commitment to really becoming a listing agent inside of their team. And the reason for that is that she didn't really know the capabilities around what it actually took to become a great lister. So over the course of 5, 10, or 15 minutes, we spent some time in understanding what it takes to do a great listing presentation. What are the key questions? What are the key visuals that you need to have in play in order to be able to build that level of confidence? And in under a couple of minutes, we got her to a point of view where she understood what the agenda was going to be for a great listing presentation, which is now going to allow her to present in a brand new way. And this is really what we're all about. It's about getting that level of commitment. It's about making sure that you understand where the areas that you fear, so then you can go and build those capabilities. Now, you might have ActivePipe on, but maybe you haven't learned how to really pull up the reports, how to log in and see who are the people that actually have that digital intent, to then get on the phone and go and ring those people. And this is a perfect time to turn up to the training that happens each week to really understand what you can be doing inside of that digital environment. When I look at people, I think about the only reason why they're not writing the fees that they're capable of writing is because of one of these 6 things isn't right. Maybe they don't have the knowledge. They just don't know what to do, when to do it, and how to actually make that happen. Maybe they're in a position that they just haven't built the key skills that actually really allow them to stand in front of a consumer and to get a great result. Maybe they haven't built the routine of what great agents do about making sure that they get in and they do that first 45-minute calls at the start of every business day. Maybe they don't have the resources in play. Or in addition to that, they're not in the right environment that's going to allow them to succeed. Or maybe there's just a complete lack of desire. What I know is important is that as we come to the end of this year, this is a great time to reflect and to review, and then to be able to put yourself into a position that you can get a preview on what you want to be happening next year. So what was it for you? Was it the knowledge thing? Is it a skill thing? Is it a routine thing? Is it an environment thing? Or is it a desire thing that's actually preventing you from achieving what you want to achieve this year? What I think is critical here is that we've got to start to really put that line in the sand and to get you really clear about how you can get some further growth for next year. So what I do with a lot of people is I literally just go and write up a couple of key areas. And it might be things like, how are they going around the usage of the CRM? How are they going around, really good quality sales meetings? How are they going on doing 45-minute call sessions? How are we going on tracking all of our appointment numbers? And what are we doing to make sure that we really measure the most important components? Then what we do, we just put the person's name on the left-hand side, and then we literally just go and rate them on those particular things. So we have a look at me. I'm a plus on the usage of a CRM. A dot means I'm so-so. A minus means I'm nowhere.com. I'm nowhere.com on my sales meetings. I'm a dot in terms of my 45-minute call sessions. I'm a dot in terms of getting more appointment numbers. And I'm nowhere on the measurement on the inside of my business. Now, if you want to go and get that next level of momentum, then what you actually start to think about is that what you've got to be doing is to really shift about how you get a greater level of engagement. And the easiest way to think about, okay, these are all the things that I need to be good at, but which of those things am I really just not at my best at right now? Now, this is a good chance to be able to go and work with maybe your real estate principal and say, hey, how do you think I'm going in each of these areas? And what would I need to do to significantly move them forward to actually move them into the plus category? Could you imagine what your business would be like if you were a plus in every single one of these? This would significantly change the amount of momentum that happens on the inside of your business. I want to talk to you a little bit about mindset today, because I think it is a really important component that if you're going to really grow, you need to go there. And what I know straight away is that procrastination will ruin your life and will limit your potential. And this is a really important conversation, because for a lot of people, they're just sitting around, they're going, you know what can I be doing? But instead they should be thinking about, let's get out there and really go and make great things happen. To me, there is no break between 2020 and 2021. It's merely just a transition, and we need to be open for business. There's a number of our clients in Victoria that are rushing back to get all of the volume that they should have been doing during the course of the lockdown to be listed and sold before we get to the end of the year. And in addition to that, there's a number of people that are actually predicting that January will potentially be one of the strongest markets that we've ever seen in Australian residential real estate. Now, there are some reasons behind it, but I want to get you to think clearly now about what you're doing for 2021. Saturday, January 9, will be our first run of open for inspections. That's really where we're going to get that flywheel moving to get into a ton of momentum on the inside of the business. What that's going to do is that's going to allow us to make sure that we actually have our first slot of on-site auctions on Saturday the 23rd and potentially even the 30th of January in 2021. Now, this is a great story because one of my clients in Adelaide was in a position that across their offices, they would do about 15 or so transactions each and every January. And they decided to have this new thing, which they called launching in 2020. And we did that in 2019. And we launched it in November on their website, on their email templates. And off the back of that, we created a really good quality narrative. So what we would say to people is that we know one of the key things that actually happens is that around this period of time, people start sticking up their heads and they start looking around to see what's available. There's a number of buyers that rush to the market at the end of November and the start of December, and they can't find anything to buy. Then in addition to that, there is a number of people that are in a position that sell their properties in late November and early December. They put their head up and can't find anything to buy either. So Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, would it be okay if we were in a position that we could actually just have your property available on our list of properties that will be launching in 2021? Now, in order to do that, we need an agency agreement, contract of sale, all of those things that are appropriate for your state, territory, or certainly country. Now, what we do here is we then actually get the photos taken, we get the styling, we get everything that we need done, and that allows us to be able to take 1 or 2 buyers through during that December period. Should we not be able to achieve a sale, then when we launch the property in a full marketing campaign from January 9. January 9, January 16, 23, and January 30 being our first run of auctions. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is that I expect that there'll be a ton of buyers that will be out and about looking for properties over the course of the Christmas New Year period. And I do have a number of agents that are looking to launch their properties on the major real estate portals over that Christmas New Year period, even as a forthcoming auction. And what they want to be doing is they want to get a jump on the competitors for January, really get a ton of inquiry they can be working with so that when they are back in the offices come January 9 onwards, they can be selling a number of properties to turn January into one of their most significant months. Really, this is the whole conversation around getting the right attitude. And when we get to this point of the year, people tell me they're tired, they're exhausted, they're over it, they're done with it. And I say to them, at the end of the day, guys, that's just an attitude. And what we need to be doing is to be changing your attitude to really go and get the significant results that you're capable of achieving. And we know that it's a really important thing to realize that when you say you're tired or exhausted, that's just an attitude. And you can change your attitude really quickly. So what's the skill base that you need? The view towards a much bigger future. To me, this is about getting 2021 to be the best year of your career. Now, as a part of that, we know that from our work with some of the best performers in the industry, the performance absolutely goes through the roof when you have the autonomy around what it is that you get to do, when you have a high level of goal clarity, and when you get regular feedback on the results. So what you want to be considering is that what can you be doing to make sure that you've got autonomy around what you're doing? How can you be making sure that you've got great goal clarity? And in addition to that, what are you doing to make sure that you get regular feedback on your results? Now, the reason why this is so critically important is if we go to have a look about what's happening across the country and internationally, these markets are absolutely on fire. In fact, we are in the middle of potentially one of the biggest booms in residential real estate across Australia and New Zealand. This is some great articles that came out in the Australian Financial Review last week. Loan deferrals at the CBA have actually fallen to just on 2.9% of the bank's total loan book as of October 31. This compares with a 10.8% at the peak of the crisis. The CBA is the biggest residential housing lender in Australia. It goes to show that literally we have seen a number of people out of those situations of loan deferrals. In addition to that, reduced bank loan deferrals, an extended amount of budget stimuluses, lower borrowing costs, as well as faster than COVID-19 reopening has triggered the sharpest rise in consumer confidence and buying property intentions that we've ever seen since records have been kept. ScoMo has come out and said that Australia is now clearly emerging from the recession at the end of this crisis, and the comeback is underway. Confidence is rebuilding in the economy. It's at a 7-year high, and it shows that Australians are getting their confidence back as we emerge from the recession. Have a quick look at this. This is Westpac's data, which clearly goes to show that consumer confidence is climbing to its highest ever levels. And if you have a quick look at it, we are now almost at the peak of the 2012-2013 boom period, which went on for close to 5 to 8 years. And in addition to that, what we are seeing is that the time to buy a dwelling has actually now at almost its peak of 2013 as well. And in addition to that, if you have a quick look at it, the time to buy significant household items is also in a position that it's back to boom-like conditions. So the sentiment is there. Consumers are ready to do transactions, and our job is to find how do we convince people to come to market. So let's go and do that and see what we can be doing to really get our skill set on to significantly drive that level of momentum. Well, the first key thing is to think about it. If no one's ever got to the top of Mount Everest and said, wow, how did I get here? Then what are you doing to make sure that you're going to grow your business? And we need to make sure that you really plan for what it is that you want. Now, in order to plan for what you want, what I want you to do is literally just draw a great little T intersection. And on the left-hand side, let's review all of the people that still need to do something in 2020. A number of our regional clients or those people that are much more for sale orientated will still be listing property right up until the 10th of December to be selling this year. A number of our clients that are very much auction orientated have already shifted gear and are now listing for their first auctions for 2021. What is important to remember is that this is the great opportunity to get very clear about who are the buyers that actually need to buy. These might be people that have been bidding on properties, making offers on properties, need to buy by a certain date because they want to be moving in before the start of the new school year, or perhaps they've got a job relocation. And who are those sellers that definitely need to sell this year? Then we can then start to move who are the people that we're thinking about that need to do a transaction at the beginning of 2021. Now, this is really about understanding that from November 24 through until December 24, we've effectively got a 4-week sprint to really get out there and to get as many listings on as possible for the start of 2021. Now, how do we do it? Well, I have a conversation with people. I say, guys, what we do is we go to list the property and then we go to launch it. As a part of that listing, we need to make sure we've got all the legals in play. We need to make sure that we've got beautiful photography. We need to make sure that we've got great styling on the property and that we're doing all of the pest and build reports. Now, we only need to see what happened in South Australia last week to realize that it's that quick that a market can turn. So we need to make sure as agents that as soon as we receive an instruction from an owner, that we're getting everything that we need done on the off chance that that may actually occur. Then what actually happens is we try to get 1, 2, or 3 buyers through. And when we get those buyers through, we might get some price feedback that's back here, but we might also get some price feedback that's way out in front. And if that's the case, we may actually make the decision to sell the property. But what actually happens if that price feedback is really clumped together? Then we're going to go and launch the property come January 9. We're going to then see what happens. We go to that first run of open for inspections. 1, 2, or 3 of those buyers that have already been through the home come back to see it again. that then pushes a buyer to pay much more than anyone else. And that's how we'll ultimately get the property sold. Now, this is a great theory. It's a really good conversation to be able to list stock well before you need it. And it's the type of thing that we do even when you're going into normal holiday periods around school holidays throughout the course of the year. Now, what I've done for people is I've got this really clear. On the left-hand side, I've written the words off market, and I want you to think about contract, photos, styling, getting 3 buyers through, how we're going to work with pre-market offers, getting it onto the website, getting it into our email systems, what we're doing around magazine, and potentially even what we're going to call signage. Now, you'll notice here that if I replace the words off market and I replace it with the words forthcoming auction, that we feel very, very comfortable and confident about our process. And this is what I want to get very clear for people. Off market is no different, in my opinion, to what's actually happening with forthcoming auction. And so from that point of view, you need all of the same things in play to be able to make off market to be highly successful for you. We then move to putting the property on market, which is where we may go to the major real estate portals. Social auction dates are now confirmed and open for inspection times are now confirmed if that's legal in your state, territory, or country right now. Now, this is a really important conversation because I'm trying to get you to understand that my dad was doing forthcoming auctions back in 1972. So this is not new, but it's a great tool that we can now use to be able to list properties well ahead of the curve where we're going to need them. And we know that Christmas dinner is going to taste so much better if you're actually already in the position that you've got your listings on for the start of next year. Today, I wanted to cover off on a few things before we go to our Q&A, and it's really about understanding what is ultimately your advantage. Imagine that Josh Phegan quit being a real estate trainer, and I made the decision to come and work in your real estate office, and I'm going to work and partner with you in being a sales agent inside of your personal team. Do you feel that together that literally we could list more properties? Absolutely. Do you feel together that maybe we could sell more properties? Absolutely. And the reason for it is that together we were going to work on your advantages. But now imagine this happen. Josh Phegan quits being a real estate trainer and comes and actually sets up as a competitor directly across the road from you. I hang out my little sign, Josh Phegan Real Estate. I go head to head. I go to the opens. I set up a couple. I meet a couple of buyers. And now all of a sudden, you and I are now competing in the same space. But yet we shouldn't be. You should absolutely be nailing me. You should absolutely be blitzing inside of your market because you have a ton of past clients that I simply just don't have. You've got a whole heap of market appraisals that you've done that I simply just don't have. You've got a whole heap of private buyer appointments that you've already done throughout the course of the year that I simply just don't have. And in addition to that, you've got this great listing presentation, the ultimate story of what you do, of how you track buyers' intentions around what they're doing in the email environment to identify who the best buyers are that then want to come and physically inspect that particular property. This is all about making that conversation right because you also should have great energy, and that's ultimately what people buy. So when you go to think about that on the inside of business today, they're only advantages if you use them. If you're not doing anything with your past clients or your past market appraisals, then ultimately you and I are now equal and we're now competing for the same business. So the secret of creating a much bigger future is about really thinking about what your advantages are and what you can go to do with them. Now, this is where the real power of technology is going to help. And I'm going to get you to think about this great question. What's the advantage I get by being one of your past clients? Now, that advantage might be really simple things that I get early advice on just listed and just sold properties. Now, I have a property down in Melbourne. I've never heard from the agent that I actually bought from after the pre-settlement inspection, but yet a rival agent who I know quite well, who has identified that I've actually bought a property in that particular development, is now in a position that he's got me on his active part automatic email alerts. Every single time that he lists or sells a property within 1.5 kilometer radius of my subject property, I receive an email about that. But this should be the benefit. And I want you to think about this great case study. Here in Balmain, where I live in Sydney, I was driving to my house about 6 or 7 weeks ago, and I saw all of a sudden that there was a for sale board or an auction board that had been erected on a property 3 doors up from mine. Now, I know the brand and I know the agent quite well. The agent waves at me as she drives past. I've been to some situations where she's been in some of my training, and I know that she receives our daily email. But yet the board's gone up and there's no phone call, no text message, no email. There's nothing to actually let me know that particular property is being listed. Now, I might have wanted to buy that property as an investment. I might have wanted to buy it as something to move into, or even for something for mum and dad. but yet there's no early advice. And in addition to that, interesting conversation, when the property sold 4 weeks later, there was no email, no text, no call, no conversation. Now, if I'm going to be a future client, why don't we treat people that way by really making sure that there's an advantage by being on your customer base? This is also about simple things like access to the off-market properties or forthcoming auctions, making sure that you've got an annual checkup on those asset values, annual reports on what's actually happening in terms of market movements, which you can put into your active pipe emails, and also weekly video updates on market conditions and trusted advisor conversations. What we're really doing here is we're getting you to think in a brand new way, where we're now starting to think, what is the customer experience that we're aiming to deliver? And how does the customer say, you know what, that's exactly what I want in terms of the future? When we go to create that, we think in a really different way because it gets us to think that a business is all about systems. Now, in order to do that, those systems are about creating a way that we can operate in a much better way. And that's identifying who are the best buyers that are in the marketplace. Now, what a great agent will do is that every Monday, they're going to go and have a look at the buyers who they know that in the last 7 days have either made an offer, bid at an auction, need to buy by a certain date, or are now frequently clicking on the emails that we send out from our active pipe system. That's really good because now you can walk into a listing presentation and you can say, Mr. and Mrs. Owner, I've got to tell you, these 5 buyers are the most likely to buy your home. And the way that I know that is they've been to more opens, more auctions, but they've been clicking on all the properties we've been sending through, and they're in a position that they need to buy by a certain date. They've got a job relocation, they've already sold, and that then gives you real power. Imagine that. Mr. and Mrs. Owner, there are 3 buyers who are most likely to buy your property. We've got the Norths who need to buy because they sold last weekend. We've got the Souths, they're in a position that they need to do something by the time we actually get to January 15 because they've got a job relocation. And then we've got the Wests who are having a baby in February and they'd love to buy before the baby's actually born. What this allows you to do is to be able to develop a better quality conversation, particularly with all the sellers that are on your pipeline. So we do a pipeline review meeting. It happens every Tuesday where we run through all the people right now that we've met in the last 7 days who are actually buyer sellers. There's a lot of these in this market. These are buyers that we know need to buy because they're in a position that when they find something that then they'll sell their property with us. But it's also too about the problem, timeline, destination methodology. What's been listed, what's been sold, what's in the media, what's been currently developed, and what hypothetical questions could we be asking? If I had a buy, could I mention your place, or should I sell them something else? What we're doing here is we're actually really learning how to progress that pipeline to get clear on how we set ourselves up for listings for the start of 2021 and beyond. And this is really about also identifying that the most important work that you can be doing this week is to be reviewing all of your current stock. Let's have a look at all the current listings that you've got on market based on the days on market, the inquiries, the inspections, the second appointments, the contracts, and the offers, and then really get clear about what properties actually need a price reduction, what needs to change in relation to marketing, and what ultimately needs to change in relation to sale method. If you did that and you had those 3 meetings, then now you're going to make sure that you're managing your stock, you know who's coming to market, and you know which buyers should be buying your existing listings. That's what great agents ultimately do. As we come to the close, before we go to some of our questions today, I want you to think about making better quality, data-driven decisions. If you went and reviewed every listing that you won over the course of this year, how did you meet the vendor? For a lot of agents, they really didn't do open homes this year. And off the back of that, they did a lot of private buyer appointments. But did you get the same or more or less in terms of those buyers that actually have something to sell, given what has actually happened during the course of this period, and given that we did a lot of private appointments this year, probably more than we've ever done before? Then you've got to start thinking about how you focus on what you can control. Everyone's focused. It's just that some people are focused on their distractions. And this is about really thinking about where your benefits are, the advantages that you've actually got as an individual agent. And it's also too a learning about how you bring urgency to the table. Mr. and Mrs. Owner, I just know that we've got a renewed amount of buyer interest and activity. We've got a lot of people who want to try and do a transaction before we actually get to the end of this year. Would you allow me the opportunity to show 1, 2, 3 buyers through, see what they have to say in relation to property, so then you can make some decisions for the future? And in addition to that, if we don't sell, then we can then launch on the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd for an auction on the 30th of January. This is a once in a generational opportunity, a once in a lifetime chance to make sure that you put your property on the market and to get it sold. Business is about really getting clear about what you do. Today, you should be feeling pumped up and energized. You've got a system for getting vision. You now know that it's average sale price, volume, and fee. We've seen this whole conversation around what you can be doing to significantly drive your momentum in calling back past market appraisals, calling back past clients, calling back those frequent clickers. You've got some agendas that you can go through for your Monday meeting with buyers, your Tuesday meeting with potential sellers, and Wednesdays around our stock review. And we've also been through and had a look about what you can be saying and doing to encourage people to come to market in 2020, or certainly to launch with a campaign for 2021. Secret lies in making sure that you do the right measurement. And if we set the strategy today to go and ring all of those email subscribes, how many people did we ring? How many people did we speak to? How many people did we re-opt in? How many of those people actually already now have something to sell, either immediately or into the future? That is what we're going to call strategy, linking with measurement, so that then we can adjust to go and achieve what we came here to do. One of my great and favorite quotes is by Jim Collins. And what he ultimately says is that greatness is really built through disciplined people with disciplined action. I'm thinking about this as I watch my niece and nephew grow up in a world where they'll probably never touch physical money, where they ultimately use their phones or their Apple Watch to pay for everything. And it either goes beep, that it's good, or that's no good. And they just don't really appreciate what's happening. And in this environment, they grow up in a social and digital world. And off the back of that, they're taught that if they don't like something, they just swipe left because there'll be another one on the right. And what I'm trying to get you to think is that this is actually really changing the way that we work in society. Too many agents are instant gratification focused and not data driven enough to get really clear about what's really working on the inside of the business. We live in a world which is filled with the prediction economy. We've got agents that believe that AI and machine learning is going to ultimately do everything for them. But what I'm going to tell you is that there's a new thing in town, and it's called human learning. It's about asking the question of the person who's directly in front of you. It's about taking the intelligence of knowing what someone's doing in the email world, what they're clicking on, why they're clicking on that, how often they do that, to then use that to have better quality conversations with our next most likely candidates. There are agents that will pay up to 20% of their fee to different websites that all of a sudden predict who's going to be the next person. I can already tell you who's going to be next. They're opening your emails. They're turning up at opens. They're bringing a tape measure. They're turning up at auctions. They're making bids. They're putting offers in on properties. They're next, and we need to go there. This is about the conversation of shifting your marketing this year and building a marketing plan for 2021, one that focuses on improving your conversion campaigns. Out of the 100% of buyers that you've met in the last 30 days, what percentage of those buyers are now due for an annual, are in a position that they live locally? What percentage of those buyers could you bring out to go and do a market appraisal or a listing appointment on their particular home? How many past clients do you have on the inside of the business? And how many of those are you moving to annual checkups where you're doing more market appraisals and listing appointments around their principal place of residence? And this is a great quote. What Ron Lippert says is that ultimately nothing is static and improvement is always possible. If you believe that, you will find a way to ultimately get back into momentum and to make great things happen on the inside of your business. Jean-Paul DeJorio, one of my great heroes of all time, he's incredible. He set up the Patron Tequila Company. He's worth over $4 billion. And he says that ultimately we set out to become a great reorder business. And I'm a big believer in that, about getting your customers to reorder, about getting people in a position that they'll do multiple transactions with you. And this is learning how to nurture them in the digital environment through good quality email, great quality video, connecting with people on the phone, and getting face-to-face that is ultimately going to change your entire fortunes in business. This is the last tool I want to show you before we go to our Q&A section. And this is about the whole idea about how to go and get momentum. Now that you've been to today's session, what are you going to do in the next 7 days? Is that ring every single buyer to identify who needs to buy this here and who's next? Is it about getting very clear about what you're going to be doing for a marketing plan for next year? In the next 30 days, before we get to Christmas, are you going to be very, very focused about making sure that you get your minimum number of listings that you'd like to achieve for the start of next year? And in the course of the next 90 days, between now and almost the end of February, what does success look like around better quality email marketing, changing up your templates, thinking about what you can be doing around consumer sentiment surveys, changing the way that you got to do the work? This tool allows you to get really narrowed focus around what you're going to do this week, this month, and obviously over the course of the next quarter. So I think that that's a great place for us to start, because it really gets us there, Toby, to be thinking about the things that we can be doing as great agents. I know that we've got a ton of conversations And guys, this is the time to put those questions into the Q&A because Toby is going to grill me like there's no tomorrow as we finish our webinar here today. So Toby, hit me. What are some of the key things that you picked up out of today's session? And also to some of the key questions that you either yourself have asked or that you've seen coming through from people in the forum.
So firstly, thank you very much for this session. There's an astounding amount of resources there. And the ones that I really picked up on were the self-reflection resources, because I feel like everyone needs to do it to obviously, move into the next year, but a lot of people don't know how. So having those resources in regards to the plus minus dots, that's going to be influential on how you have that outlook onto your business and how you're going to change it into the next year. But one of the other ones that I picked up on was the loan deferrals. I think that's massive. And I think that, a lot of people are sort of putting it out there in the marketplace that there's going to be this massive drop once people, come off their loan deferrals and can't actually pay their mortgage. But to see that actually decline so much now, because there is so much positivity in the marketplace, and obviously, in everyone coming back from the recession, I think that's extremely important for agents to know, to then overcome those objections as well.
Toby, there is not a single marketplace in Australia where there is more loan deferrals than there was in February this year, pre the pandemic. And so the statistics actually show and indicate that there's just a huge amount of media storm, and that's not necessarily the truth. So, we've got to start thinking differently about what's in the media and how do we spin the story of the truth of what we're actually really seeing in the cold, hard data about what's actually happening in these markets.
100%. There's always a tug of war between the media and the agents as to what's actually going to be said about the property market. Now, I just want to answer a couple of questions. There is one just about the image and files over that CBA article as well. We will be circulating the recording of this, and also, with your permission, Josh, we can circulate the slides as well.
Key slides. Yeah.
I've got a question from Arusha just about how to attend the weekly Active Pipe training. Essentially, that's on our website, activepipe.com. Under resources, you'll find the webinars tab, and essentially that will have all of the weekly webinars, but it'll also have the upcoming webinars. So things like this webinar will be posted on there, so you can register ahead of time as well. But yeah, activepipe.com, you'll be able to find our webinars on there as well. And I've got an interesting question for you, Josh, just from Bridget. Moving from a product or service to an experienced agent, what are some tangible ideas on the experience we can provide?
This is a really great question. And one of my favorite things of all time was this whole idea about, what Disney defined as delivery of service. And I'll take you through the story because it's worthwhile hearing. So this 6-year-old girl goes to Disneyland and she's with her mum and dad, and she's in the happiest place on earth. It's a hot day. She's been on all the rides. Well, after the day, she's like, oh, I'd love an ice cream. Mum and dad are like, okay, great. So they go and they get an ice cream made for her. As they all of a sudden get that, they all of a sudden get this ice cream, and the young girl gets it and she goes to lick the ice cream, and the ice cream falls to the ground. She's now crying. She's hysterical. We've got the unhappiest girl in the world in the middle of the happiest place on earth. Disney now say that they define that the delivery of service and successful delivery of that service experience is actually successful consumption of the ice cream. So they go and they remake the ice cream. They send the character out, like literally Alice in Wonderland, who like literally teaches her how to lick the ice cream so the ice cream doesn't fall to the ground. And that is what we got to call the experience. Most ice cream shops would say as soon as the customer takes the ice cream, they now take responsibility. At Disneyland, they determine the experience based on what that actually looks like for successful consumption. So what I'm trying to get you to think about is that it is really critical that we stay focused around developing an experience, from how someone's name and contact details are taken at open for inspection, what email they get in terms of the feedback around that open for inspection, what are the things that we do in terms of the phone calls, and how do we actually just make it seriously good? I'm not that interested in a bottle of Moe, when in fact I'd much prefer that a cleaner goes through the property to assist me as a seller right before we get to settlement day. And now those things are really different, but it's about really playing in a much different space. So to become an experience-based agent, you want to think about what are all the things that people have to interact in the before, during, and after in a property transaction. And we need to start to define that someone only turns from being a client into a past client after they've successfully lived in the property for a minimum of 12 months. And this is where we need to start. If we change that view, I bet you we'll change the way that we work, as opposed to saying, well, look, they're no longer a client once we've actually got to offer an acceptance, as opposed to settlement date, or as opposed to living in the property for 12 months straight.
Great advice. Disneyland is a very magical place, and
yeah,
it
exactly
definitely does
right.
have that experience down pat. A question from Sean is, what would be one email within Active Pipe that you must send before Christmas?
So I think that like the big conversation, is just about, getting you really thinking about that now more than ever before. You just got to go and let's resurvey the buyers. Who are the best buyers in the market today? Let's go and do that. Off the back of that, then let's make sure that you've got some really good quality email content, particularly around listings that will be launching in 2021. So I'd be updating my templates, thinking about what I'm doing with that, and then having some conversations around it.
Yeah, definitely making it more relevant. And also in regards to linking back to what you said within your session is, what's coming up in 2021, really getting that interest in early for those properties that you are listing as well. That would be definitely one that I'd send through ActivePipe, because then you can track all the clicks, follow up those people and get them in beforehand as well. Get those three main buyers to get that pre-market pricing as well.
Mhm.
Um, Last question that we've got is one from Sal. Now, what do you think, or what would you do to break into a new suburb? And would you hold onto your previous area a database that might be 30 minutes away? Sorry.
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation. I think that like you should leverage every single relationship that you've already got. What I'm seeing brands of the future actually doing is that as an office, they actually go after a market rather than as an individual. And just imagine that if you went to everyone in the office, including the property manager, the front receptionist, people that have been in the industry for 20, 30 years, does anyone know someone who lives in this particular market? And how many landlords have we got that already live there? And how many transactions have we already done in that particular market over time? And so we need to leverage those markets in order to be able to go and break it. There's some incredible things that we can see. One of our clients, Mollen and McNeese in Wollongong, and they're doing a great new business leaders series, which they put on their socials and on their email, where they interview a local business owner, and that actually goes up, and that local business owner shares it on all of their socials, and they send it out as an email as well, so people can go and watch that video. What a great way to get in front of all of their audiences, of all of the local businesses that actually operate in the area that you want to be in front of. This is about learning how to do things in a new way and leveraging data in a brand new way that we've never done it before. And I think the whole conversation is that we just need to shift that now you've got to be really focused on who's already got the relationships that you want. One of our clients does a thing called auction for an auction, and he actually auctions off his services to sell a property with all the proceeds going to the local school. Off the back of that, that's done very, very well for them. They actually raised over $50,000 for the local primary school just last week, and that was Sam Rogopoulos down at Jellis Craig in the inner north of Melbourne. So this goes to show you that there's some great things that people can be doing to be able to go and track a new market. You need a strategy, and you need to be prepared to go there to go and make it happen.
Definitely. Great insights. Definitely measure and adapt as well. Now, in regards to Meg's question, do our active clients know that we can track their clicks? They don't directly know that you can track their clicks, and you want to be creative about how you actually, portray that knowledge. You don't have to say, hey, you've actually clicked on this property and that's why I'm going to speak to you. You just know that you've sent them out that property and that's why you're giving them a call as well. Just say that I've sent you a really suitable property, so I think you'd be interested in. Would you like to go through that one or something like that? You'd have some scripts, Josh.
A classic example of that, Toby. Garth Mikowski is on here today. I know that he's a big muscle car fan, and no doubt that when he searches for a muscle car on Google, I bet you that muscle car follows him everywhere he goes in terms of the digital advertising. And so from that point of view, what you want to think about very quickly is that the world's actually changing in these ways that we just have an expectation. Whatever we search on Google is going to follow us everywhere. Just don't make it awkward and weird. Toby, I noticed that you clicked on that property 6 times. Do you want to buy it? Wouldn't it be better just to pick up the phone and say, hey, Toby, Josh Phegan, mate, I had you down there looking to buy. I thought I'd check in to see, have you found anything yet? Is there anything I can help you with? You'd be amazed to see, oh, you wouldn't believe it. I was actually thinking about X, Y, Z. And that's a good quality conversation as a part of that conversation. So, it's learning how to be human and how to connect and to do great things. And so, this is about really pushing the brands forward and doing incredible things. And I know, so we've got Kate Smith on here. She's got an incredible business in South Australia. And that whole view is just about learning how to connect with customers in new and powerful ways and being able to be a human first and a real estate agent second. So, Toby, hopefully that's given people lots of great activities and things that they can be doing to list lots of great properties for the start of 2021, putting into their ActivePipe template around launching in 2021 to go and build that amount of momentum. We're seeing lots of brands do it. I know that McGrath in Parramatta, Constantopoulos, he's doing that, where he's got 30 auctions on January 30 that they're going to be doing. And this is a great initiative to really get the industry out of the doldrums of thinking that you can't do anything till February and March, and actually turning January into one of the biggest months of your real estate career.
Mm. It's an exciting time, and hopefully 2021 is a lot better than 2020. But Josh, again, we can't thank you enough for your time. You're an invaluable resource, and I'm sure, as we've seen all the feedback through the chat, everyone's enjoyed this and really taken something out of it as well. So thank you again for your time. Thank you everyone for your time as well, for tuning into this. And we really look forward to the next session that we hold with you, Josh.
Amazing team. If I don't get to see you beforehand, have a great Christmas, and we look forward to hearing of many incredible stories of success as we head into 2021. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.